I was a top-tier investment professional. I had just completed a multi-billion-dollar international MA deal and returned to my own company for a celebration gala. But my husband's junior from the finance department wanted to fire me, claiming I hadn't put on makeup and was damaging the company's image. I chuckled, thinking she didn't recognize me, and politely asked, "What authority do you have to fire me?" She then publicly stamped a termination notice with the company seal for me, saying, "Because the boss is my husband." I took a deep breath and immediately called my billionaire father. "I've been fired from the investment bank. You'll have to seek out other talent for your financing." Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and let us know in the comments where you're listening from. Then I called my husband, Daniel. "Daniel, get back to the company now. Tiffany wants to fire me." Without waiting for his reply, I hung up and composedly watched Tiffany in front of me. But she didn't stop, pressing down firmly on the company seal on the termination notice, as if fearing it wouldn't be clear enough. She picked up the thin paper, flicked it with satisfaction, then pursed her lips and tossed it in front of me. "Someone, help Grace pack her things and get her out of here." I looked at the company seal on the termination notice. It certainly didn't look fake. I wondered if Daniel had sold the company behind my back during the 3 months I hadn't been back in the country. But even if he sold it, he should have informed me, the company's second largest shareholder. As I finished speaking, the surroundings suddenly stirred. A group of colleagues immediately responded to Tiffany's command, swarming towards my desk. I frowned and reached out to stop them. But before I could speak, Tiffany struck a victorious pose, picked up the notice, and lightly patted my face. "Oh, Grace, are you still planning to keep hogging the position without performing, just see? Electing a paycheck? Let me tell you, Daniel recognized my abilities and promoted me to general precisely to deal with disgraces like you." No sooner had Tiffany finished speaking than the employees I had stopped immediately echoed her. "Exactly. Ms. Tiffany is the company's second in command. Forget about firing you, even blacklisting you across the entire industry is in her control." It seemed things had changed drastically within the company during my absence. I suppressed my anger, staring intensely at Tiffany, and said, word by word, "Tiffany, I am Daniel's wife and also the second largest shareholder of this company. Fire me? You? Wife?" Tiffany let out a mocking laugh and even clapped. "Grace, you really are the epitome of a gold digger. Aren't all the qualifications you're flaunting thanks to Daniel?" Tiffany straightened her back and smoothed out her haute couture suit. "But I'm a Stanford School PhD in finance. And I was personally headhunted as a top investment banker with a high salary." She took a step forward and grabbed my tie. "You're just an opportunist who got lucky with the timing. How can you compare to me?" With that, she yanked hard on my tie. My neck was suddenly constricted, my face flushed crimson, and I bent over, coughing uncontrollably. After just a moment, Tiffany released her grip, looked down at me, and curled her lips into a sneer. "You don't have to leave if you don't want to. You can take a demotion and be my assistant, fetching coffee and running errands. I might even consider letting you have the desk near the restroom." As soon as she finished speaking, laughter erupted from the crowd. "Ms. Tiffany is powerful. This kind of parasite should be made to do some real work in the company." "Exactly. Always boasting that 90% of the company's income relies on her. How shameless." The clamor roared in my ears. I took a deep breath, suppressing the urge to lash out. It's an undeniable fact that I secured 90% of the company's bus. Without this business, all of you would be left with nothing, let alone Tiffany throwing your weight around here. My longtime mentee, who had been with me since the company was founded, suddenly stepped forward, standing between Tiffany and me. I was relieved, thinking she still remembered my kindness. But the next second, she turned around and glared fiercely at me. "Grace, stop spouting nonsense here. It's disgusting to witness. You're nothing but a kept woman. Ms. Tiffany is doing you a favor by letting you be her assistant. Don't be ungrateful and disrespectful. Otherwise, be careful you don't make it out of the company alive." The crowd instantly became agitated. "Yes. Make her kneel and apologize to Ms. Tiffany." In the chaos, someone kicked me in the knee, and I fell heavily to my knees. My longtime mentee was the first to act, grabbing my hair and trying to force my head down to bow down in apology. With a bang, the company door burst open. High heels clicked closer, and the gold-rimmed glasses on Daniel's nose reflected the light. I felt a wave of relief. Daniel arrived so quickly, it seemed he still cared about me. But I didn't notice the even more arrogant smile on Tiffany's face beside him. "Daniel, Tiffany wants to fire me." The next second, a sharp pain shot through my abdomen. Looking down, I saw Daniel's foot planted on my abdomen. My entire body felt like it was shattering from my abdomen outwards. Fine beads of sweat broke out on my forehead, and tears welled up in my eyes. But I could only open my mouth and let out a silent cry of pain. Before collapsing to the floor, I met Daniel's eyes blazing with fury. He frowned deeply, his voice agitated. "Grace, how dare you throw your weight around as soon as you get back? Do you not respect me as the chairman? Tiffany is the general I spared no effort to recruit, the Stanford financial genius I personally mentored. She's the future backbone of the company. Who gave you the audacity to defy her?" His eyes on me were like looking at a repulsive stray dog. "What's wrong with being Tiffany's assistant? Whatever she wants to do, just go along with her. It's a great honor for you to learn from her. I'm telling you, don't be ungrateful." Tiffany's smugness grew even more pronounced, but I found her face looking increasingly familiar. She was clearly the intern who stole confidential information from Genesis and was sent to prison for 3 years. How did she become my junior? After he finished his tirade, Daniel finally turned to Tiffany, his gaze so gentle it seemed to melt. "If you needed an assistant, you should have told me sooner. I could have found you anyone. Why pick for yourself and choose the one with the strongest personality? You're truly a handful." Tiffany immediately moved closer to Daniel, clutching his arm, her face full of grievance. "Daniel, maybe I should just leave. Grace seems to really dislike me, undermining my authority in front of so many people. I'll have no credibility in the company, and managing this team will be even harder." Daniel's eyes were filled with pity, then he turned and glared fiercely at me. "Useless, hurry up and bow down and apologize profusely to Tiffany. From now on, remember your place in the company, otherwise, even I won't tolerate you." The buzzing whispers from all around filled my ears. I looked at the man who had built this company with me for years, now with only cold indifference in his eyes. I sneered, gritting my teeth and speaking word by word. "Fine, then I'll resign. Is that good enough?" Daniel roared in fury, as if his tail had been stepped on. "I've given you too much respect. Are you going to be arrogant just because you take credit for helping the company go public? All I asked was for an apology. How dare you threaten me with resignation? Dream on. You'll apologize today, whether you want to or not." With that, Daniel waved his hand, and everyone swarmed forward, pushing me down to my knees in front of Tiffany. They all grabbed my head and forced it to bow down in apology. I stiffened my back, refusing to bow, struggling and roaring through gritted teeth. "Daniel, you can't do this to me, you'll regret it," but scoffed dismissively, turning his head to continue comforting a tearful Tiffany. He appeased the woman until she was struggling to suppress the smile on her lips. Overwhelmed by sheer numbers, my resistance was futile. To force me to submit, their fists and feet rained down on me. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen, and I finally bent over, my head hitting the floor. Dull thuds echoed repeatedly. My head felt like it was splitting open, and the world spun around me. Large bloodstains marred the floor. Daniel and Tiffany stepped back. "Be careful not to dirty your shoes." He held Tiffany tightly in his arms, reminding her softly. Roaring laughter filled the air, like slaps hitting my face. There was a time when Daniel and I were crammed into a tiny office less than 10 square meters. We pulled all-nighters doing market analysis, conducted thorough due diligence and built financial models. I personally visited various businesses and factories, verified the risk of every expenditure, ensuring every case was handled to perfection. That's how Zenith's reputation became increasingly prominent in the financial world. I worked day and night on the road, sleeping in hotels and on planes far more often than in my own bed at home. And I missed too much time I should have spent with Daniel. But back then he told me, "Grace, I know you're working hard for our future. I'll be the pillar of support behind you." But what was the outcome? The result was that I signed another multi-billion-dollar deal for the company, returning worn out from travel, hoping to share my joy with him, only to find him conspiring together with Tiffany, that scum, and forcing me to bow down an apology to her on fabricated charges. I don't know how long passed, nor could I count how many times my head was forced down. I lay collapsed on the floor, everything before my eyes tinged with a bloody red. With effort, I lifted my head to look at Daniel, but what met my eyes was Tiffany, disregardful of the surrounding gazes, rubbing her chest against Daniel's body. And in Daniel's eyes, there was no discomfort, not even a hint of it. Instead, desire was being ignited. Completely devoid of the cold and distant expression he wore when facing me. My heart completely died. Forcing myself up, I stared intently at Daniel with my red-rimmed eyes. "Let's get a divorce, Daniel." Daniel's brows furrowed again, then he let out a mocking laugh. He took a folder from his secretary, opened it, and slapped it in front of me. The bold characters' divorce were so glaring. Perfect. Then sign the divorce agreement. Once you've signed, transfer the billionaire's project to Tiffany. It seemed he had prepared everything long ago. I mechanically took the agreement and flipped through the clauses. I suddenly looked up, staring intently at Daniel. Leave empty-handed? But he chuckled, then pulled out another document and threw it at me. Seeing the bold characters pledge at the top, I was stunned for a moment, then suddenly transported back years ago. Back then, Zenith had gained some renown in the industry, and I had become an industry rising star, full of vigor and constantly socializing. Finally, one day when I returned home, Daniel embraced me, tears in his eyes. Grace, our lives are getting better now. Will you stop loving me? Seeing his pitiful appearance, my heart softened, and I picked up a pen to write this pledge. It pledged that if I ever changed my mind, or initiated divorce or left the company, it would be equivalent to voluntarily relinquishing Zenith and all marital assets. As someone blinded by love back then, to reassure him, I even had this document notarized. He was deeply moved to tears, swearing to be with me forever. Now that I think about it, from the moment he had tears in his eyes, it was all just a setup. It's laughable, really. I am a top investment wizard on Wall Street, having conducted countless risk assessments for projects and helped numerous companies avoid various pitfalls and crises. Even in negotiations, I was best at mastering human psychology. Yet, in the end, I was betrayed by the person closest to me. We once supported each other, promising to meet at the top. Now, against the backdrop of those bold words, leave empty-handed, it looked like a joke. A tear slipped from the corner of my eye, but I couldn't help but smile. All right, Daniel, as you wish, I'll walk away with nothing. I merely glanced at him before looking away and turning the pages of the divorce agreement. I just hope you can keep your job secure. With that, I signed my name with a flourish. I pulled off my wedding ring and tossed it aside, then turned and walked away. But reached out and grabbed me, saying with a cold laugh, "Do you think you can just leave after signing? Grace, you are still an employee of Zenith. According to the agreement, you must work until the end of this month before you can leave." I shook his hand off, scoffed, and continued walking out. Ridiculous. When did I ever sign an employment contract with you? You can play your games, I'm out. But behind me, a wave of sordid sounds suddenly erupted. Daniel's threatening words followed. If you don't mind the whole world knowing that the seemingly aloof and reserved Grace actually lives such a wild private life, then go ahead and leave, right? I turned in shock, only to see Daniel holding up his phone, playing a disgusting video. It was video footage of him and me from when we were still intimate in bed. He had recorded it all. The expressions of everyone present became subtle, their gazes like sharp blades, moving back and forth over me. I clenched my fists, glaring hatefully at Daniel. You certainly spared no effort to ruin my reputation, Daniel. But he reached out and gently caressed Tiffany's cheek, saying softly, "You're wrong, it's all worth it for Tiffany." Ultimately, I unclenched my fists. After all, Daniel's fate was already sealed. It truly wasn't worth it to ruin my reputation just to act out of temporary anger. Seeing me swallow my pride, Daniel laughed arrogantly. "That's better. Obediently be a good assistant to Tiffany. Your first task is to prepare the celebration gala. Of course, it's a celebration for Tiffany, scheduled for 3 days from now. If you mess this up, you know the consequences." For the next 2 days, Tiffany made things difficult for me at every turn. Even the colleagues in the company joined in, bullying me. I remained silent, just waiting for the celebration gala when they would pay the price for their actions. On the day of Tiffany's celebration gala, Daniel was the first to take the stage. This gala is mainly to commend General Tiffany for her outstanding contributions to the company in the previous international MA deal. Secondly, there's also good news to announce. He surveyed the scene, and Tiffany confidently walked onto the stage. The two held up their clasped hands, showing off the matching rings on their fingers to everyone present. Tiffany and I have finally become a couple. Our wedding is set for next month, and we will invite all of you to attend. Applause, cheers, and congratulatory remarks erupted one after another. I just let out a scoff. Daniel's calculations were quite clear. It was timed perfectly for the divorce waiting period. The day we got our divorce certificate, he could get his marriage certificate with Tiffany the very next day. Tiffany took the microphone. The hall instantly fell silent, waiting for her to speak. Her voice was beaming with self-satisfaction. Originally, due to certain individuals, the client was preparing to withdraw investment from this MA deal. Out of respect for Daniel, I took on the task in a crisis and worked tirelessly with the entire team for over half a month, finally turning the tide and achieving a win-win. But this experience also made me realize that some so-called experts in the industry are nothing special. She effortlessly erased my credit for securing this deal. And she kept referring to certain individuals, subtly implying I was all show, no substance. She was quite adept at such passive-aggressive tactics. I see, Grace, to put it simply, has an undeserved reputation. She's nothing like Ms. Tiffany, who is so down-to-earth. Every word of the murmurs reached my ears, but all I wanted to do was laugh. This industry never lacked sycophants. As I was pondering, Daniel continued speaking from the stage. Grace, due to project failure, has caused significant losses to the company and is now being dismissed. He looked at me composedly, and Tiffany also approached me at the opportune moment. She stood tall, with an arrogant expression. I will be fully responsible for the billionaire's case from now on. Give me his phone number, and I'll personally communicate and coordinate with him. Then, she lowered her voice slightly. I advise you to be obedient, otherwise, Daniel will announce your blacklisting across the entire industry. Looking at her outstretched hand, it dawned on me. So insisted on keeping me until today, all for the billionaire's case. According to the cooperation plan, today was supposed to be the day the billionaire made the payment. They probably thought the billionaire's money had arrived, and the project was a done deal. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Daniel, however, frowned first. Laugh? How dare you laugh? Tiffany is from a prestigious school, and her abilities are inherently superior to yours. She'll handle working with the billionaire with more ease than you. You'd better face reality. Without financial, you're nothing. Investment wizard? That will soon be Tiffany's title. I shrugged my shoulders, not Boda. Ring to refute his words. I simply tore a piece of paper, casually wrote down the billionaire's phone number, and smilingly slapped it into Tiffany's hand. She clutched the slip of paper as if it were a treasure, then turned to Daniel with a knowing look. Furthermore, it is hereby announced to the entire industry. Grace is unworthy of her position. If any other investment bank dares to hire her in the future, they will be making an enemy of Zenith and the billionaire. With that, Daniel and Tiffany both looked at me, full of anticipation. I knew well that they wanted to see my dejected expression, but they would be disappointed. I stood up and lightly patted Tiffany's shoulder. Good luck. I hope your conversation with the billionaire goes well and you successfully close this deal. With that, I turned and left the venue. I wanted to see what expression Daniel would have when Tiffany, and in turn who stole confidential information, led Zenith to bankruptcy. After all, no one present knew that this case was entrusted to me by my father. I elegantly exited the banquet hall. At the entrance, a neatly dressed man wearing large sunglasses got out of a Maserati he was leaning against and opened the car door for me. Apex, Julian. In the industry, he was both a rival and a friend, and we shared mutual respect. He had expressed his affection to me once but I gently declined, after which he committed himself to recruiting me to his company. Glad to see you free, Grace. His voice held a hint of excitement. Let's go. I'll take you to Apex to see your new office. I nodded and got into his car. Meanwhile, inside the banquet hall, Tiffany suppressed her excitement and called the billionaire. Mr. William, hello. I am Tiffany, General of Zenith, and a Stanford School PhD in finance. On the other end of the phone, a steady male voice responded. Oh. After receiving confirmation, Tiffany quietly pressed the speakerphone button. She wanted all the guests present to witness her SE. Hearing the billionaire's multi-billion-dollar contract. Regarding the project you entrusted to Zenith, the previous person in charge, Grace, has been dismissed by our company due to serious issues with her personal ability and professional ethics. Zenith highly values your project, so I will be fully responsible for coordinating with you from now on, helping your esteemed company reach new heights. Seeing a brief silence fall over the phone, Daniel quickly interjected. Mr. William, I assure you, General Tiffany is currently the top-tier investment professional in our investment bank, far superior to Grace. You can rest assured in entrusting the project to her. Who are you? The steady male voice asked again. Daniel visibly flushed, and he awkwardly replied, Mr. William. I'm Daniel, chairman of Zenith. Perhaps hasn't mentioned me to you. Oh, Danny, we've met before. The male voice spoke again. The hall erupted in an uproar. So had actually had the honor of meeting the billionaire in person. No wonder Zenith secured the billionaire's project. But a flicker of panic crossed his eyes. He had no idea when he had met the esteemed billionaire. So you really fired Grace? Without giving Daniel a chance to react, the billionaire asked again. The two finally realized that the billionaire seemed to care a great deal about Grace, and were about to argue. She had issues with her professional conduct, which is why she was fired. The billionaire cut him off. Danny, I think you probably haven't read the contract. Daniel froze for a moment, then asked, puzzled, Mr. William, what's going on here? This case has never had any connection with your zenith. The billionaire's voice was tinged with coldness. It was just a small matter I casually handed over to my daughter. The banquet hall was in pin-drop silence. Everyone present was stunned. Daniel's smile and smugness completely froze. Grace was the billionaire's daughter. Why didn't he know? My father's cold voice rang out again on the phone. Since you've fired Grace, I presume your divorce is already in progress, isn't it? Although I never approved of your marriage from the start, that brat insisted on being with you, even running away from home to start from scratch. And she actually built Zenith up. I acknowledged her, which is why I gave her this project. From start to finish, I only acknowledged her as an individual. From start to finish, all projects of Kingstone have had nothing to do with your zenith. And it will remain that way. The phone call was abruptly disconnected. Daniel stumbled back a few steps, his legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the floor in a panic. What was he going to do? Was he going to have to beg Grace to come back? But he had so arrogantly humiliated her and fired her from Zenith. Wasn't it all to prove that Zenith could go further even without Grace? But what Daniel didn't understand was that without me, no one would choose his investment bank. I, Grace, was Zenith's hallmark. Without me, Zenith was nothing. The next day, the news of my joining Apex spread throughout the industry. Of course, this news was deliberately leaked by Julian. For this, he booked out a top downtown restaurant to hold a welcome banquet for me. Well-known investors, corporate representatives, and even competitors in the industry all came to the event. Zenith was the only one not invited. Ms. Grace, if there's an opportunity to make money in the future, please guide us. Exactly. Where goes, prosperity follows. It's already well known in the industry. Wherever Grace is, our projects will follow. We believe in you. Everyone's faces were beaming with smiles. Just then, the banquet hall doors were abruptly pushed open with a bang. Grace! Daniel's sharp shout rang out, instantly silencing the noisy venue, and everyone turned to look at him. So you were conspiring together with Julian, that bastard, all along. No wonder you were so eager to resign. You even conspired to steal my clients. This is unfair competition. You are a disgrace to the industry. The hall instantly burst into laughter, and Daniel's face visibly flushed crimson. Julian, standing beside me, elegantly put down his wine glass, then took my hand. His voice was not loud, but it exuded an innate confidence. Mr. Daniel, that's not quite right. Wasn't Grace fired by your zenith? As for me, I merely took advantage of my prior acquaintance with Grace. Proximity afforded me the advantage, and I seized a great opportunity. And as for you saying I stole clients, that's a baseless claim. Many executives present, some of whom I'm meeting for the first time, are simply willing to cooperate with us out of respect for Grace. Daniel's face turned red and then pale. He couldn't utter a word for a long time. A quick-witted CEO quickly interjected, with all due respect, Mr. Daniel, we were willing to entrust our projects to Zenith because we valued Ms. Grace's reputation and ability in the industry. All cooperation agreements stipulated that Grace must be in charge of the projects. Therefore, wherever she goes, our projects will follow. You fired her. If you want to pursue accountability, Zenith would be the breaching party. Daniel froze, but another executive chimed in first. Well said. Mr. Daniel, don't you have a Stanford PhD in finance? I hear she's quite capable. Why not let her try taking on new cases? Someone else, whose face looked familiar, seeing the priceless expression on Daniel's face, continued, oh, stop it. I heard that Ms. Tiffany, the PhD in finance, just landed Zenith a big contract worth $1,000 recently. That's no huge sum of money that small businesses like ours can afford. Hey, what's wrong with Mr. Daniel? Where did that arrogance go? The one he showed yesterday when announcing Ms. Grace's blacklisting across the industry? Did he suddenly realize he doesn't have that much influence, and now he can't face reality? A joyful atmosphere filled the air, and everyone burst into laughter. Only Aunt Tiffany, standing in the center, had faces flushed crimson. After losing Grace, Zenith was instantly deserted. Phones were ringing off the hook with cancellation calls, and termination letters and even breach of contract notices piled up on their office desks. Coupled with the sarcasm and mockery from everyone present, Tiffany's wounded pride finally couldn't take it anymore. She ignored Daniel, who was desperately trying to pull her back and signal her to shut up. She violently shook off Daniel's hand and furiously pointed at the last passive-aggressive CEO. She scanned the room, saying viciously, "You. This bunch of sycophants who only kick them while they're down. What's with the pretense? You think you're hot stuff just because you have some money? Let me tell you, Zenith doesn't care for it. Not only those of you present, but also the companies you represent. We at Zenith will no longer take on any of your projects. When you come crying back to Zenith, regretting this, don't forget everything that happened today." After a moment of silence, the scene instantly erupted in laughter even wilder than before. It was as if Tiffany, like a clown, had just put on a spectacular show for everyone. Only's vision went black, and his body swayed as if he were about to collapse. His face was drained of all color, precisely because he understood too well what Tiffany's declaration just meant. It wasn't just pushing away all these top-tier clients and cutting off any possibility of cooperation. It was tantamount to making an enemy of the entire industry's top echelons. Connections and networks, these were precisely the very foundation of an investment bank's survival. Yet, they were utterly shattered by a few words from Tiffany. Daniel, who had just processed what happened, lunged forward to cover Tiffany's mouth, but she dodged him. "Daniel, what are you doing? These people are publicly humiliating us like this. Should we really have no backbone? Enough. Shut up. You have no idea what you're saying." Daniel was genuinely furious now, yelling at Tiffany at the top of his lungs. I just quietly watched the farce unfold, seeing Tiffany digging her own grave, and Daniel deeply regretting trusting Tiffany. Julian stepped forward at that moment. He gently clapped his hands, and the roaring laughter in the banquet hall instantly fell silent. Everyone should have heard clearly the statement made by Ms. Tiffany of Zenith on behalf of their investment bank, right? "I trust no one misunderstands?" Maliciously slandering competitors, verbal attacks on major clients, and publicly announcing the severance of business relations with all the major companies present. I'm sure you all have recognized their current caliber. Such seriously lacking personal conduct, along with the investment bank's current management approach, are concerning. As for their slandering attacks against Apex, we reserve the right to pursue legal action. We also ask all of you present to serve as witnesses, and to provide testimony if necessary. With every word Julian spoke, Daniel's face grew paler. When he finished, Julian gracefully turned around to face Daniel, making an elegant gesture for them to leave. "Mr. Daniel, Ms. Tiffany, everyone present has taken note of the statements you both wished to make today. If there's nothing else, please leave our venue." Apex did not invite Zenith to this welcome banquet. The security guards waiting at the entrance received Julian's order and immediately stepped forward, throwing the two still cursing individuals out of the venue. Just before the door closed, Tiffany was still shouting loudly at the door, "You just wait. I'll be back." The banquet hall doors closed, and roaring laughter erupted inside once more. Tiffany, even her words sounded like a villain from a children's cartoon. However, no one expected that in less than a month, Zenith would indeed gain notoriety because of Tiffany. After his outburst, Zenith became infamous in the industry. A few competitors who enjoyed the drama even posted the video from the banquet hall online. Soon, someone with an agenda discovered Tiffany. After that, Zenith's business declined day by day. Unable to close deals for a long time, the entire investment bank became as desolate as a street after a cold wind. Employees who had been utterly subservient to Tiffany secretly sent out resumes. Daniel was so anxious he was losing hair rapidly, even resorting to wearing a wig. In desperation, he had to mortgage most of his personal assets and rushed around seeking clients. Finally, an emerging capital firm extended an olive branch to Zenith. Daniel was determined to secure it, not only showing his sincerity but also offering significant concessions. Years ago, when he and I started Zenith, this tactic was repeatedly successful for us. But this time by his side was Tiffany, who desperately needed to prove herself to Daniel. In truth, Tiffany wasn't that desperate about this. Because at the same time this emerging capital firm approached them, its competitor also secretly contacted Tiffany. The competitor offered Tiffany an irresistible price, asking her to provide some trivial information to the competitor company at her convenience. Tiffany agreed without a second thought. After all, this was her forte. When it came to investment acumen or risk management, she was utterly clueless. But stealing confidential documents? That was a natural talent of hers. Being caught back then was just unlucky for her. Anyway, now that her name was changed and her appearance had changed, it was time to make another push. As for Daniel, the man was truly foolish. Zenith could no longer regain its former glory, and this man was also on the verge of bankruptcy. So, naturally, a wise person chooses their alliances carefully. Tiffany fled. Daniel only learned of this news when he received the court summons. He disbelievingly called Tiffany, but only when he repeatedly got a busy signal did he realize that he might never see Tiffany again. That emerging capital firm, due to the leaked confidential files, directly filed a lawsuit against Zenith. Daniel, as the legal representative of the responsible company, had to solely bear the mess Tiffany left behind. Ultimately, the judge announced that Zenith was officially declared bankruptcy. All assets, including most of Daniel's personal assets, would be auctioned off to repay debts. For this judgment, I accepted the court summons to attend the hearing. Looking at Daniel now, I barely recognized him. He used to be a vibrant investment banking elite, but now he had prematurely graying hair, thinning hair, and a sallow complexion. By the end of the hearing, he broke down crying uncontrollably. Like a madman, he knelt before me, clutching tightly at my pants leg. "Grace, will you give me another chance? Let's start over. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have trusted that liar Tiffany. I'll do anything, starting as your assistant, fetching coffee, and running errands. I can do it all." At that moment, the bailiffs rushed over and pulled him away. I turned to look out the window. The sun was warm and gentle. "Daniel, let me tell you something. The emerging capital firm that gave you the project, and the competitor company that bribed Tiffany, actually have the same financial backer. She also owned another company. About 5 years ago, Tiffany was an intern there. She was also sent to prison for stealing company secrets." Daniel slowly widened his eyes, finally collapsing to the floor in despair. So this whole thing was a setup from beginning to end? A setup for Tiffany, but Zenith and I bore the consequences for her? I stood still and said without a trace of emotion, "No, you were merely caught in the crossfire. A nationwide warrant has been issued for Tiffany's arrest. It won't be long before she goes back to prison. I hope that can be a small comfort to you. I'm leaving. Never to see you again." With that, I turned and left the hearing venue directly. As I exited, Julian walked up to me and handed me a cup of coffee. "Is it over? Is it all settled?" I took it, opened it, and took a sip. But instead of the expected bitterness, a sweet aftertaste lingered in my mouth. It ended a while ago. He, however, took the coffee cup from me, drank directly from it, and after a moment of savoring it, said, "It shouldn't be the end, but rather a new beginning." With that, he pulled me up and walked away. "Hurry, Mr. William finally called and invited me to dinner at your place. We can't be late. We need to make a good impression." I could only smile and follow him. "If my father isn't happy with you, he won't even acknowledge you." A look of triumph quickly appeared on his face, as bright and beautiful as the evening glow in the sky. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.